Amazon laid off 30,000 people today. The narrative is that this is about AI replacing jobs. The reality is very different, and I want to be really precise about it because it gets at corporate structure and finance and not really at AI in the way you think. So when people think AI layoffs, they think the robots are doing the jobs now, and therefore we are having layoffs. No. The people who are doing the jobs are more stressed if they're still at Amazon, but the AI automation story isn't actually hitting those jobs. What is hitting those jobs and is related to AI is the cost of chips. So NVIDIA sells chips to everyone, GPUs. Those chips are how we power AI, and none of the major cloud providers can get enough chips right now. Microsoft can't, Google can't. Google's in an easier spot. They have TPUs, and Amazon definitely can't. In fact, people don't know this, but AWS has a roughly 25% burning backlog on GPUs. In other words, they are missing out on revenue because companies are begging for more compute from AWS that they can't fulfill because they can't buy GPUs because they only had so much budgeted to buy GPUs. And so, yes, the layoffs are related to AI, but in this case, it is burning corporate demand for GPU chips that is hitting the capital expenditure budget of Amazon so hard that they need to find other ways to reduce fixed costs so they can meet the expectations of Wall Street around the overall margins of the business. And you might be like, well, why does that matter? They're all like billion-dollar companies. In Amazon's case, their margins have always been notoriously thin everywhere except AWS. Retail is like a ridiculously thin business. But the AWS margins have been really good. And so the street, for better or worse, expects them to continue growing the high margin business at a good clip. The street was not happy with their 18% year over year growth rate this quarter. And the street is looking for them to pick that growth rate back up, which they cannot do if they cannot buy more chips. And they cannot buy more chips without destroying their margin unless they can cut costs other places. And chips are so expensive that the only way they can cut costs is by going after jobs or fixed costs or salaries. And that is what is happening. And so really, when you read this, instead of reading this as a guidebook to where AI is automating, read it as a guidebook to the things that Amazon finds least painful to cut when they have to trade talent for GPUs in order to maintain their margins. So these were very hard discussions, and the places they cut are places that I think they are strategically not as invested in. And that is the way I read it. None of this does anything to make people who got fired today feel better. And so I don't want to pretend it does. If you got let go from Amazon, that really sucks. And this doesn't fix it. And I hope you find a role soon. There is absolutely life after Amazon. I found life after Amazon. It does happen. There's a huge network of Amazon alumni out there, including me. And yeah, we look out for each other as best we can. But the narrative is something I do care about getting right, because I am tired of lazy narratives around AI, and I wanted to be very precise here. So that's what's really going on. And yeah, when you hear the easy AI automation story, kick the rocks a little bit and see what crawls out.